Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural delivery of ShoreTel's Tech Bytes. Today's topic, winning with ShoreTel MS Telephony Connector. Our presenters today are Mr. Dan Nemechek and Dan Cristofano from the ShoreTel Solution Center. As we do with all of our ShoreTel webinar broadcasts, your phone lines will be muted for the duration of today's delivery. If you have questions regarding the content for our presenters, please make sure you submit them via the question portion of the application, as we will be answering questions in a moderated Q&A session after we finish our content delivery today. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and get things kicked off as I pass it over to our first presenter, Mr. Dan Nemechek. Dan, you're up.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you to all of our great partners and customers who are attending, our internal employees. I see we're creeping up on 100 on this bridge. It's a great day for us to launch Tech Bytes and to get this recorded. And again, many of you have emailed me. Yes, this is going to be recorded and put into many channels so that we can do this. And let's just get it kicked off, Dan, and start off with my piece of the presentation, Positioning to Win. What I want to talk to everyone about, whether you're a customer, whether you're a ShoreTel partner, whether you're a Microsoft integrator, the importance of positioning a product is key. And I want to talk about just an introduction, overview of the Microsoft Telephony connector that we have with ShoreTel Connect. It is a single interface product. It manages your business communications, but it leaves the Skype for Business, formerly known as Link, client as your primary collaboration and desktop client. And we are compatible with the Skype for Business product, whether it's online or the premise version of it. So we have the majority of the deployments out there covered from Link 2013 forward and including Skype for Business. But the features we're going to include to give the customer the full business communication suite are calling, call transfer, GTMF, so that you can pulse digits over a normal call, conferencing, your call history, everybody you've talked to in the past. We've also added just recently visual voicemail from straight across just being a voicemail call. We've added visual voicemail in here. And we've also added the ability for our soft phone, the ShoreTel soft phone, to control to use the client and staple into the client, if you will. So let's move forward and talk about positioning this product and how it fits into why connect telephony for Microsoft. Okay, the key for winning, and when I say winning, I'm talking about as a partner, you winning with your customer, as a customer, as an IT person, as a network engineer who's putting this product in, winning with your end customers, is to position this correctly. This product is aimed at customers using Link/Skype for Business as their choice for desktop collaboration. But MS Telephony has produced a pain point in your organization. Probably hasn't provided the full rich feature set that you want out of your telephony solution. So there's really 4 deployment models that need to be considered and positioned here. Number 1 is all ShoreTel phones with a mixed set of Skype for Business and ShoreTel Connect on the desktops. If you've never seen the full-blown demonstration of ShoreTel Connect, if you're an end user, every Tuesday and Thursday we do a demonstration of that on ShoreTel. Just go to the ShoreTel site and Google upcoming events, and you'll see that, and you can see a full demo of the Connect desktop. So you can see the versions you get. And the nice part about this is you can have a mixed environment. Maybe an operator needs the full-blown ShoreTel Connect because they're more of a telephone user, whereas your engineers, your architects in the firm collaborate with each other majority of the time. Will be using Skype for Desktop and its capabilities. It's already deployed, but they need phones on top of that. The second version is that environment of a fully collaborative group that doesn't make a lot of outside calls, doesn't take a lot of inbound calls, but that you still need that phone there for the occasional, I've got to dial into an external conference. I've got to transfer, call somebody, conference somebody, and transfer. That would be all ShoreTel phones and or soft phones with all Skype for Business plug-in. So that's deployment model number 2. Deployment model number 3, jokingly I say, the one we prefer, would be to go with all ShoreTel and all Connect and use Microsoft possibly as a peripheral for just instant messaging within international groups where you're not going to deploy locally, or maybe where you federate with other companies. But all ShoreTel with all ShoreTel Connect is going to be a full UC solution with collaboration as well. And the last one is probably the one there in red that we're talking about solving for, is that someone that's tried to deploy Skype for Business or Link with their enterprise telephony, and it's just not working. And we're going to talk about this on the next page. Why are we doing for this model? Or we're going to talk about it in a little bit later page. Yeah. So we are not going to support the mixing of the 2 telephony brands. There's no plan to do it, and here's why. There's no real support for an interconnection today between the ShoreTel voice system and the online Office 365 PSTN without a lot of clutter in a very complex environment. Link, which is an on-site product, we've supported it in the past since it was called LCS. If those of you that have been around it long enough, we supported it in OCS, did a lot of development, and we partnered with several third parties to continue to do it when it became Link. And at the end of the day, the solution was complex. We had to integrate with a lot of third parties. It made it clunky and it made it complex. We, as ShoreTel, our motto, brilliantly simple, making interactions simple. We should not create complexity. So at some point, you just have to say, look, if you want to solve this problem, or you've deployed Microsoft Link or Skype for Business, and you want to keep pieces of that telephony piece, you should probably go all the way Microsoft, or you should probably make the decision this isn't going to work and mix in ShoreTel with the connector. And there at the bottom you see that link to the upcoming event so that you can see a full ShoreTel Connect demo if you've never seen it, and compare the 2 side by side if you get to this situation. As we move forward on the path here, we want to talk a little bit about product prerequisites and what you can get going. So what will this product run on? What are my operating systems? We are compatible with Windows 7, even Windows 8 if you're running that, and Windows 10. Obviously, we see the majority of our deployments in the Windows 7 and Windows 10 environment, as those are the most adopted. We do not support Link and or Skype for Business on the Mac for this deployment, and we can talk about that a little bit later if others have any questions. Going forward, what are the Link compatibility options? Obviously, Skype for Business, and on the Link side, 2013 and above. So the compatible servers obviously being 2013 Link, Office 365, and Link Online. And what do you need with ShoreTel? Obviously, ShoreTel Connect is the minimum requirement. This plugin does not work with ShoreTel 14.2. So that is it for me, Stuart, unless there are any questions that we have here, and I see one.
Yeah, Dan, we've got a great question that's come in here, and it's, are there plans to support the Mac desktop? Good question.
Right, yeah, I see that's actually come in twice. There is no plan because there is no telephony plugin from Microsoft right now. So the answer there would be the Mac person either needs to look at going full ShoreTel Connect, and it's a great experience, by the way. I'm a full-blown Mac user now, but I also use VMware Fusion for Windows for those types of apps that I need to run on just Windows. So in the Mac world, that's the solution for right now. We continue to run that up to our product group as a desired feature, but until the Microsoft telephony connector for the Mac comes into play on their side, we really can't develop for it.
Very good. Very good. Thanks. Great answer.
I see another one here, Stuart, that says, will there be a specific support queue with expertise on the Microsoft offering? And the good question. Our TAC has all been through a TOI. All people are certified. I'm sure, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm sure within there are specialists, just like we have specialists in mobility, specialists in contact center. I'm sure there are people that have that expertise, but for the most part, you'll call the standard TAC line. Now, my team, what's known as the Solution Center, you're going to see Dan Cristofano. He's somewhat of our resident lead on this product, just because he's a big-time Windows guy, knows Microsoft really well. But from that standpoint, my team all knows how to show this product, uses it every day, demos it every day. So we have that on the pre-sales side. What is the link for the upcoming agenda? We showed that one. And the last one is the ShoreTel product, is this a ShoreTel product or an advanced app or a third-party offering? That's another great question. And the answer is, this is simply a ShoreTel product. And I believe we talked about this a little bit later, but it comes with the standard licensing bundle and above, whether that's on cloud or on site. So there's no specific SKU. We get this question in our queues almost every day. There's no specific SKU for this product. It's just any of your users that purchase the standard licensing bundle have access to this plugin. And I believe that clears the questions. So we'll turn it over now to the resident expert here. And he hates to be called an expert, but I will turn it over to him because I know he's an expert, and that's Dan Cristofano from the Solution Center. So take it away, Dan.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate that. And, really that last question drove right toward the product installation portion of what we're going to cover initially in our remaining slides and before our desktop demonstration. The installation is straightforward. It can be utilized as part of a process. If you have group policy in place, you can certainly utilize this in a group policy object. You will, of course, have to go through the end user license agreement acceptance, and the typical installation takes place. Note that it does require administrative privileges in order for the installation to be done. So from a local perspective, you do have to be capable of administrative privileges at that level if you're doing your own installation. As you proceed through this, there's checks involved in the installation, so that if there is another client, you may recall that Dan talked about the Unified Communications Full Connect client experience. If that's already installed, then this application will stop its installation. So there's little checks and balances built into that to make sure that the installation goes smoothly and in a straightforward manner. I'm not going to do the entire installation for you live. We're going to go through some screenshots. Your key as to when you've done a successful installation, of course, you'll be prompted to restart your Skype for Business client, and when it reloads and comes back, you should see a nice ShoreTel frame docked to the bottom with a green login button on the lower right-hand side. Now, before we move any farther into the discussion about that itself, I had some conditions I wanted to just emphasize again. And as we already know, you must be running the ShoreTel Connect software. This is a Connect compatible only application. So that's one of the main requirements. We also know that the Connect client running on the same system as the Connect Telephony plugin are not compatible. One will stop the installation of the other, so we're trying to keep things straightforward and smooth and not allow for any of that confusion to take place between those applications. It's interesting to note, and please keep in mind, that if you are working in that scenario that Dan described where you have some of your users utilizing the full Connect client experience and others that may be using only the Connect plugin with their Skype for Business, that the availability status shown in those environments will not relay between the different client users. So something to keep in mind. This is all about setting expectations. There's a tremendous advantage to having the ability to add the plugin to a primarily Microsoft Skype for Business environment because, as you know, ShoreTel does telephony very well. So let's talk about product functionality. This is where the rubber meets the road. As we've always said, we should make interactions simple. We want to have something that allows us to assist the business processes by making them more efficient and easy. As we see the login process, you're invited when you click on that login button to input your credentials. Utilize those that are appropriate for your environment. If you don't know what they are, get that from your system administrator and log in. You'll also note there's a couple of check boxes, so you only have to enter this one time if that's your preference, and when the system boots up, it's going to log you in automatically. As you might also imagine, it's important to know which endpoint you want to use. And this was something that I was very glad to see. Now we have liberated the users of this plugin to select their desk phone to manage their audio, or, as Dan had alluded to, the ShoreTel soft phone. And of course, one of our great advantages, utilizing an external assigned number, perhaps your cell phone, for example, maintaining that telephony control inside the focused desktop environment of the plugin docked to the bottom of that Skype for Business client, but allowing you to select as the user which audio path you prefer. We also provide within the environment full call control, so that includes a dial pad that can be brought up by clicking on that icon, so you can input DTMF tones if you're joining a conference, have to put in a participant code, something of that nature. The call history, equally important to pursuing one's workday, is easily listed when you click on that, and again, just scroll up and down, find the party you need to connect to, and just go ahead and click on that icon. As you see, an incoming call is going to provide you the information that we absorb, whether it's a name perhaps drawn already from your contact list, or whether it's just a number. You'll be provided with the information and allowing you to select how to manage that incoming call with those controls that will pop right up. We'll see this in just a few moments. Calling from the search bar is actually one of my favorite functions because I don't have to know someone's number. All I have to do is either type in some letters or information so that the directory can find the contact that I wish to reach out and dial, or if there's no contact, just type in those digits for the telephone number, hit enter, and the plugin will take your selected audio device off hook and dial that call for you. Again, the call history makes it very easy to return calls. It's going to keep track of those calls that you make, those calls that you receive, and those calls that you miss. Now, remembering that we are an additional plugin to the Skype for Business environment reminds us that we want to be able to utilize elements from the Skype for Business environment, such as the contact card, and we want to be able to easily dial from within that environment. For those team members that may have multiple phones, you can utilize that little black downward pointing triangular arrow next to that dock that continues to promulgate to all elements of the Skype for Business, including the contact card, and select the number. And I'll show you in the options menu how you can do it even more easily from within the Skype for Business client itself. Covering the telephony functions, I feel, is very important because it's all about providing the full experience and capability of the telephony management we want the ShoreTel to handle. In this instance, whether I'm muting from the physical phone under the control of the client or clicking on the icon, I have that capability at my fingertips. We already touched on the dial pad, and we can see that it's easy to place calls on hold, deal with something else, and resume that call when it's appropriate. The developers have done a great job of adding little tool tips that pop right up whenever you mouse over something, so if there's any uncertainty at all, it really is quite helpful as a guide. Finally, transferring and managing the calls. Perhaps you're one of those individuals that takes most of the inbound calls, does them moderate triage of an individual's needs and finds it necessary to transfer either blindly or consultatively to someone else in the organization. We've managed that as well quite nicely here with the transfer icon. All you have to do is enter the name again and send that call again right away or consultatively to that designated party that you've dialed, while simply having the original call on hold automatically. When you do that, it works very smoothly. The other part of communicating in the business world, of course, is conferencing. Conferencing often takes place when you have received a call, perhaps you received a second incoming call, and by clicking on that second call, you automatically place the first call on hold. And through conversation, as you toggled back and forth in a broker manner between calls, with each call being subsequently placed on hold for you, you've discovered that, in fact, those two callers and yourself really can conference together and accomplish business more quickly. So with that in mind, what we've done here with the plugin is made it very easy by simply dragging with your mouse one call on top of the other. It will create a conference, and it will also show the conference participants, and I'll show you that in a moment with the little triangle that you see on the lower right. Managing telephone calls, straightforward and easy. Managing voicemail with the new addition of visual voicemail is even easier than before. Clicking on my voicemail icon, I can raise up the voicemail window, and I see in that panel information associated with those calls that left me messages. I can listen to and return the call by simply clicking on the icon next to that caller's name, and I'm given, almost like VCR controls, the ability to pause, play, delete, and so forth right within the application. Because I'm also provided with that individual's number, it's very easy to return the call as well. The More menu gives me the ability to flag that message so I can find it on a different menu if I need to keep that for later reference. I'm now going to jump out of the slideware right into my desktop, and let's take a look at this in operation.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Dan, let's, we do actually have several good questions that have come in.
Okay,
and,
great.
One, and you might have clarified this, I've been looking at questions and trying to keep up with them as they come across. But one question is, does the silent installation also require that the user has admin rights? Can we force the login with single sign-on with the silent installation? Could you expand on silent install a little bit?
Silent install can be handled through the standard group policy object capabilities of the Windows environment. And that means that you can install that as the administrator over your particular set of computers. So that is the way that it can be done, is it must be developed into a GPO push, and we have several articles available in our knowledge base on that.
Okay, great. The other one that came across, and I'll let you transition and demo, is someone asked about, as Microsoft has announced some beta release of their Teams software, and I know some people know about some things that are coming from ShoreTel in the team part of the world. We can't really discuss roadmap items on this call, but those of you that are partners that want to find out about the teamwork type workspaces should be registering for the ShoreTel One Global Conference for Partners, where you will see a lot of information on that, including updates on what's going on here and our strategies with many other integrations. So we can't talk about that here as its roadmap, and we will go and cover that in Orlando. So we'll see you at the Gaylord, and I know Stuart's going to give me many points there for asking for more partner registration. So Dan, continue on with the demo. I think we've cleared the question queue.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. So what I've done is I've taken this to our desktop, where in fact you see that I've installed and I've logged in with my set of credentials into my Skype for Business environment, and below that client is that docked frame from our ShoreTel Connect Telephony for Microsoft plugin. This provides for me all of the features that we had spoken about. I thought it might be kind of nice to just show it to you live as we conclude our conversation with you this morning. Let's go left to right and see what the features are. Notice that I have my availability shown here in my Skype for Business client, and my ability to alter that availability down here in that Connect plugin. So I can demonstrate to folks, for example, that I'm in a meeting, and when I do that, because some of the titles that we use for availability in ShoreTel are slightly different than the titles used for availability in Microsoft, we choose the closest match. A couple of matches that do work, for example, is out of office. We have that. Available, of course, is available. So we're ready to go. We've got some calls we're going to place here. As we look through, we can see that inbound calls, very easy to do. Outbound calls, even easier. We can put in, as a matter of fact, one of my favorite test numbers for things of this nature. And for those of you that know that, that is actually the atomic clock in Fort Collins, Colorado, where you can be certain that you're already tied to that clock when you look at your servers along the way. Most people, when they're looking for network timing, are calling and utilizing in some fashion this information. So we've created an outbound call. We can mute our desk phone, which is under the control of my client. And notice also that we can move back to the other menu items so that during a call I can do things. To return to the call tools, I simply click on the call itself. And this is where, for instance, I might want to transfer a call or even to conference in someone else. So let's go ahead and add to this conference. There are two ways to make a conference. This one is where I'm going to actually dial an individual from either putting in the number or finding their name in my contact list. So let's go ahead and conference in my colleague Dominic here. You hear that phone ringing in the background. And what we have here is now we've got that conference together. I added Dominic, and I can see a list of the participants. So I can see right away who's on the phone with me. As individuals drop off, or if I drop the call and they leave the conference, we see that we're going to go back to that individual conference. I click here for telephony control. I can put the call on hold. I can pull the call away from that status, resume that call, and then, of course, what am I going to do? I'll be rude and I'll hang up on the clock. Very easy to manage calls. Don't forget that the first thing I did was I specified which item, which endpoint I wanted to use for audio. Very important from a use perspective to be able to choose what I want to do in terms of audio. It gives me a level of capability that I really appreciate. Now, those calls that we've done or those calls that we've received are going to show in my call history. In my call history, what I like about this is not only does it show me who called me or what I dialed, it also gives me quickly and easily the ability to launch a call back to that person. How many of us know that being nimble in business, using tools that make your business processes more efficient, really helps you to capture and maintain more business each and every day? Well, that's the whole point behind this type of operation. We want to be able to see that. We want to be able to do that over and over repeatedly. The voicemail aspect, we saw that in slideware. It's always good to show you in real time. So here, for example, clicking on the icon. Here's a message that I flagged the other day, and I have the ability to play that. Now, that will play according to what I've selected as my audio device. Looking at a flagged voicemail, it moves it to a special menu where I can see it right away. And if I click the More menu, I do have the option to download that voicemail as a WAV file. So very easy to manage pretty much any aspect of my business as it refers to communications and telephony. Now let's take a look here. Let's go over to some of our groups and let's see. Here we have Jeff is online with us today. Now I'm working within the Skype for Business environment, so I can point to Jeff and I can bring up the tools in this window, and when I hit the More menu over here, I can see that right here I have the ability to launch a ShoreTel call to Jeff, and I can also open his contact card, and that dock, that little frame docked along the bottom, continues over to the individual contact card where I can select and choose to dial. If there's multiple numbers for that individual, I can make that dial there. Also, I continue to populate the context menus within the environment of Skype for Business with that ShoreTel call option. So I have the opportunity to continue to use ShoreTel to manage the audio piece. Okay, I'd like to take a look at some of the key settings. One of the things that I'd like to mention is the fact that when we talk about managing calls, we're talking about really managing the relationship that you have with your clients. And what does that really mean? That means when folks dial you, that means that you should be able to interact with them in the way that makes sense to you. You might know, for instance, they're a level of priority that shouldn't be ignored, and you want to be able to utilize rules and capabilities within the system that allow you to do that. And what we do is we call that call routing. So let me go ahead and share with you some of the power of Connect Telephony, and particularly what the plugin can bring to you. In this instance, I've accessed the settings menu, that little gear on the far right of my plugin, and I've taken us to the call routing settings. Now there's various other places, as you can see, but we're really only going to visit this one area because this is the power that we bring, being ShoreTel, to make your interactions easy. So utilizing that availability setting, we can run a wizard. We can record an individual greeting for each of your availability states. This allows you to define every condition under which a call will be handled and how it will be handled based on your availability. As you run through the wizard, and I'll just do this, I've got this written already, you can take a look at what I'm doing. I'm simultaneously ringing my mobile phone. I've defined under other conditions under which people can leave a message. I'm even given an opportunity, once again, to record my greeting, to listen to the one that I have, to even select the device that I use to make that greeting. And once I'm done with all of the steps, I simply save that, and that is my availability routing becomes available to me right here visually, so that then I can adjust individual steps if I need to. And this is the basic availability routing. What I mean by that is everybody dialing you at this point, based on your availability, will follow the rule that you have written. But the real gem is here in power routing. Folks, power routing is a prioritized set of power rules which allow you to set one or more criteria that will become the rule when matched that takes precedent over availability routing. How many times involved in business you have to have someone get in contact with you, your most important customer? You don't want that call delayed for any reason. You can create a power rule and you can specify the conditions. Just give it a nice little title. And then I'd like to share with you just a couple of the conditions that you can select. One or more criterion can be chosen. And I'll leave that menu open for just a moment. Here we can now take an internal number, an external number, a number whose caller ID I know specifically. And I can input that there, and I can direct that call in a different path and in front of any availability routing. So I know, for instance, when someone calls, if they call from this number, this rule will apply. As you can see, that's already actually in my contact list, and I can then select it very easily. Maybe someone dialed that number, and from that number dialed me at my desk, and maybe just to add an additional criteria, I was on vacation. Well, folks, when that happens, I may want to forward that call to voicemail, select a different number, or I could play a special ringtone. Let's send it to voicemail and create the rule. The new rule arrives at the bottom of your prioritized power routing rules list, enabled with a little gray arrow. Now I can move that to the top of the list. This list is sorted from top to bottom. When it sees a match, that rule will process. and that happens before any availability routing. Once you've created the rule, you can enable or disable easily right here on the right-hand side, and edit or delete as appropriate. Now, folks, there's a number of things that we've tried to share with you today and show you the power of adding the Connect Telephony plugin into your Skype for Business environment. Hopefully, this has been informative and useful as you plot your course into unified communications with ShoreTel. Stuart, have we got any questions at this point that have come in during our comments?
Dan, you better take a sip. I've got a few questions here, and get ready. So, question: does the plugin affect any Skype for Business functions?
I think we need to remember. Well, the answer to that is we're taking over the telephony portion. So that means that in my settings, I'm going to select and use my ShoreTel defined number for audio conferencing and use. In terms of other functions, such as utilizing the Skype call and things of that nature, if those have been set up in your environment, you would still have that option. Let's go back to Jeff's contact card, and let's open that up, and you'll see that when I mouse over this, I have the ability to call him, or I can specifically choose ShoreTel. So other functions typically associated with Skype for Business would not change. We're just taking control of the audio portion. Next question.
Next question. How is the integration from Windows app like Outlook or SharePoint? What happens when you click on the phone icon in an Outlook contact, for example?
Well, that's a very good question, because in my case, if I'm utilizing Outlook in particular, when I loaded my ShoreTel Connect telephony for Microsoft, I actually populated some add-ins into that application so that, as a matter of fact, the call will go utilizing my ShoreTel number.
There you go. All right. Here's the next question. If I drop the conference call, does it automatically disconnect the other participants, or will they stay on the line?
You know, that's a great question. I ran that experiment yesterday, and the good news is my participants, after I dropped out of the conference, actually stayed on the line.
Great. The answer we wanted to hear. Oh, man, Richard Walters left us a long one here. If you open the contact card as a user within Skype window, you add to pin it before selecting a number to call on them. Is there plans to change having to pin it before selecting the number to call? That is a roadmap question, so we'll have to do that. But I think we'll have to take that up the line, Richard. So remind me on that one. Get back to me. We'll follow up later with that question. Okay, you already went over that one. What happens if you click the native call button? From Patrick, under the Groups tab, is there any way to get a line present state, idle, busy, or green amber coloring to show for several users at a glance and their active phone state? We would like to know if this can be a suitable application for an operator or a receptionist who needs to see several users. I have an opinion on this, Dan, but I'll let you go first.
Okay, well, if I understood the question, and we're looking at the groups in my Skype for Business client, I really see that as a question that is best directed to Microsoft, which developed the main client. I don't see that really as something we can address. What do you think, Dan?
Well, in my opinion, this is the perfect story to having the mixed desktops, where you just say, at some point, somebody in that sort of operator hunt group, call answer position, working boss secretary relationships, you're going to want the full-blown Connect experience. And I don't know, Dan, if you happen to have the Connect client where you could kind of pull a group or operator view up, but yeah, we're built to do that with Connect, where Microsoft is, again, built to collaborate with one-off and all of these things. So anyway, that in my opinion, that's a great what I call discovery call with the customer to see where their tolerance for that is, and if this person is going to be that heavy of a phone user, we will have to look at probably deploying the Outlook client on there. Let's see. We saw changing the ShoreTel call handling mode changed the Skype availability. Is there any way to have Skype availability, busy D&D, change the ShoreTel call handling? In other words, we push it, can we pull it?
Honestly, I've only ever seen it as a push. I don't know the answer to that. That may be for our developers.
Yeah, that's so that'll be a roadmap question. We'll follow. Stuart will get me all these questions, and we'll follow up the unanswered ones for sure. Javier asked more of a philosophy question. Is it not confusing to have two different call icons? Yeah, I probably think it is. That's why the discussion to the customer needs to be, are you primarily telephony? Are you primarily a desktop collaborator? Okay, so Jeremy asked again, what kind of call is placed if the user places the native Skype for business call button? Does it place a Skype call or a ShoreTel call? So if you click on the Skype call button, does it use Skype or does it use ShoreTel?
It'll use Skype. You can see that in the drop-down tooltip right there.
There you go. Hopefully that got you, Jeremy. Are there any changes for Skype for Business Client when using an SA100 appliance? No. That I don't have a better explanation. The SA100 appliance would be addressed by an extension, but it doesn't affect it. So you could technically collaborate on either product. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, think about it. Our SA100 or 400 or virtual appliances are just another conferencing bridge. You could mix and match this. It would just be a training issue for the customer and end users to let them know, are you going to use Skype for collaboration? Are you going to use ShoreTel for the collaboration? Are you using Skype for instant messaging, ShoreTel for instant messaging? So that's there. Jeremy says, yep.
Dan, if I may add a comment there, I think the questions like this really point to the importance of something you brought up in the beginning of our conversation, and that has to do with discovery about the user base, your prospect, and how they intend to use collaboration. I think that helps so much to define the correct path when you're developing the solution. And so all of these questions are very pertinent to that.
Yes, and yeah, I read a great quote on discovery, and that's exactly it. Discovery is asking the questions that haven't been asked yet and that you're anticipating to come down the line. So Jeremy asks another question. If you create a Skype for Business conference call using Skype resources, how does it look to the plug-in user? If you create a Skype so if we're creating a conference call in Skype for Business, well, the plug-in user is going to also get that through their email. They're tied to their email, right?
Yes.
Yes. So it would come through. They would get a join capability just like they would get in a regular Skype invitation. So then they would join through Skype.
And as a matter of fact, the reason I brought up the settings menu here is because when it comes to meetings, you can actually select what you're using. And so in my case, I'm using my work phone, so it knows automatically to utilize my ShoreTel line.
Okay. Migrating from 14.2 to Connect, what is needed to be ordered additionally to get this? Again, just a standard license. A question came up earlier whether an Essentials license gets this done. I have not found, I've been frantically looking in the backdrop, but I do know the product manager for this. It is a standard license. I haven't found where it's documented, but a standard license is required. And I'm sure Dan gets that question about 3 times a day in the call queue. So Dan, if you could forward me the document so we can attach that to the follow-ups. But it is a standard license required, non-essentials. When you migrate from 14.2, just make sure the users that need this product are on a standard licensing level and above. And then,
if I may,
Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, I think this is also a great opportunity to remind everyone that in our latest version of the Connect Partner Selling Guide, there's an excellent discussion on how to go about moving a customer from 14.2 into Connect and addressing those license needs, especially as it refers to the kind of desktop client that the community might require.
Right, and I'm going to go ahead and send the link to the Partner Selling Guide, because we would ask all partners to consult that. There's a lot of information in there that answers these questions, and I know there's going to be a lot more documented about this plug-in as we go. And then Jeremy asks one last follow-up question: would they be able to join via ShoreTel phone? And I think we answered that. If the Skype bridge is dialable by an external number, they sure could. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
There we go. I think that's the last question, and we're only about 1 minute over where we wanted to end. So I will thank Dan for his excellent demo, and I thank all of you for your great questions. We were worried we wouldn't have a lot of questions, but we should have known with this group that we would get a lot of them. Made for a great demo. It's going to make for a great video presentation to everyone. And so I'll thank for your time. I'll turn it back over to Stuart with any final closing remarks and logistics about this and whatever he wants to close with.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, this was a tremendous delivery today. Great kickoff to the Tech Bytes series, which we're going to be offering on the first Thursdays of every month. So we will have the future listings in the events section on the partner portal. So you'll be able to register there, as well as we will be sending out invites as these become available and then and the agendas get built out. Once again, I'd like to thank our presenters for their delivery. I'd like to thank our partners for participating and their great questions that we answered today. And we look forward to hearing all of you on the next Tech Bytes on December 1st. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.